Welcome back to Close Up. Very soon, Chris Pappas is expected to get his first declared Republican challenger in the 1st Congressional District. Matt Mayberry is a veteran, a businessman, and a longtime Republican activist, and he's our guest this morning on Close Up.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us, Matt.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
Appreciate the time. So a lot of voters will be getting to know you for the first time this year. Biography is important, but so is philosophy. Tell us why you're a conservative.
Absolutely. One of the things that got me into this race, Adam, that took me from the sidelines onto the field is I found 4 veterans that were denied access to mental health care because the VA wasn't paying their bills. I raised $10,000 privately and told the practitioner, never turn away a veteran again. After that, I was traveling with Will Hurd, congressman from Texas, visitor here, and we found 90 veterans that are about to be denied access to home health care because the VA didn't pay their bills and owed that practitioner $60,000. We've since learned that New Hampshire practitioners are owed $168 million from the Veterans Administration. Congressman Chris Pappas sits on that committee, and to add insult to injury, he is the chair of the subcommittee handling investigations and operation of the Veterans Administration. That's wrong. So my philosophy is one about customer service. I bring New Hampshire principles and New Hampshire values, not that of Washington. So that's what moved me into soon to be a candidate for U.S. Congress.
So being a veteran yourself, and this is a long-term issue, and it's one, this is something, veterans get leaned on for votes a lot here, and there's been a lot of talk over years about a veterans hospital in New Hampshire. It's never really happened. Is that something that needs to happen, or can care be provided in a better way differently?
I think care can absolutely be provided differently. I would create a VA care card, or Veterans Care Card, where you can go to any medical facility and get the care you need and deserve. Because, Adam, from the time that those young men and women raise their hand at the MEP Center and pledge to protect our country until we give them last rites over their internment, we have a moral responsibility to take care of our veterans. And those who are willing to lay down their lives for us, we need to take care of them. The VA and the Veterans Hospital do some very good things, especially with prosthetics. But if you're a veteran in New Hampshire and you have cancer, we have Boston, we have Dartmouth-Hitchcock, we have Catholic Medical Center, we have things on the coast. Get the best care you can. That's what we promise these folks, not marginalized care.
What will we know you for beyond the veterans advocacy, which seems like a very important issue for you? But if you're there on Capitol Hill, what's sort of your top issue? Fiscal responsibility? Where are you going to really make a push?
A little bit of all of it. It's supporting small business. Because right now I run events, and we highlight and amplify and showcase hundreds of small businesses around the state of New Hampshire. Last year, 40,000 people came to support small business. I believe in small business. I believe in things like the balanced budget amendment. We need to bring back the line item veto. We need to make the Trump tax cuts a permanent part of the law. I believe in infrastructure. Here in New Hampshire, we have 17,000 miles of road and 3,800 bridges. We need good roads and strong bridges to bring good product into New Hampshire so that we can put our products out to the world. Because exporting in New Hampshire is a $5.3 billion industry for our economy. That's important. I want to secure our electrical grid. I want to make sure we have clean water and clean air. I want New Hampshire to continue to be the absolute best place in the United States to raise a family, to start a business, and to stay right here.
CD1 is a swing district, but in 2018, Chris Pappas was able to win in places like Bedford and Merrimack. This is almost like, when a Democrat wins in those places, that's like you're losing pieces of your castle as a Republican. There are turrets that have fallen down. How do you not only get those back, but also win in the places where you need to? In particular, it seemed like a lot of voters were sending a message there that they didn't exactly like the direction that the president was taking the country in 2018.
I think what the voters are saying is that they were tired of business as usual. Because one thing we need to understand that hasn't been conveyed is that cooperation doesn't mean compromise. That we can work with each other and have opposing political views to move the country forward. When we look at the replacement of NAFTA that's coming out, the USMCA, that's getting great bipartisan support. The president is excited to put it on his desk. So when the parties put aside the partisan politics and work on a solution, we can do great things. I would do that, Adam. I do that now. I help feed homeless children. I volunteer for the Salvation Army. I'm chair of the Board of Commissioners for the Human Rights Commission for the state of New Hampshire. I serve on the board of Fosters and Adoptive Families Association here in New Hampshire. When we put the politics aside, we can do amazing things. And that's what I do, but that's what I've done. Let's see, past practices predict future behavior. I'm someone of New Hampshire, for New Hampshire, and by New Hampshire.
You're also a very strong Second Amendment advocate. A lot of the pressure right now, you see some of the polls, it looks like people want something to be done about mass shootings in the vein of some kind of gun control. But as a Republican, as a conservative and a Second Amendment advocate, do you think there are any laws federally that need to be repealed?
Well, I produce the gun shows here in New Hampshire. Matter of fact, when I leave taping here, I'm going to be going to my gun show this weekend, this Sunday. And I see a lot of small businesses. These are small business owners. And we get thousands of people every year. They're law-abiding citizens. And the principle we can't forget is that people who will follow the law are law-abiding citizens. These people who commit mass murder, they're criminals. They're not going to go for a gun-free zone. They're going to smile and they keep walking because they know they have a soft target. So the founders got it right when they did our Second Amendment. And we think back to unfortunately, to the church shooting, it was a parishioner who had a concealed carry who neutralized that situation in 6 seconds. What would have happened if someone wasn't armed at that point in time?
Is there any issue on which there's daylight between you and President Trump, or is everything lined up there? I mean, for instance, tariffs. These are things that Republicans long opposed and now flip-flop.
I think it's one where my philosophy with President Trump is that if it's good for New Hampshire, he has a strong supporter in me. If it's bad for the state of New Hampshire and my constituents, my friends and my neighbors, then I'll oppose the president. But I think, again, cooperation doesn't mean compromise. We can work together. If the president's for New Hampshire, I'm for the president.
One of these polls that we've seen lately shows that a lot of young people seem to be attracted to at least this idea of socialism. I think you've probably seen this as well. Surely there are a lot of young voters who are hearing what Bernie Sanders has to say as a democratic socialist, and they like that. So what's the argument from a free market conservative to try and win back more of these young people, in particular when they're sitting there under mountains of student debt, unable to afford a home to buy, and feeling like they are constrained so much, and you hear this so often, that they feel like they don't have enough money to get married and have a family. How does the free market argument win them back when we've had, 30 years of pretty pro-business policies at the federal level?
Everything comes at a price. You can't get a free education, free housing. Someone has to pay for that. It just doesn't happen. The bills do need to get paid somewhere along the line. But I think what they're looking for is opportunities and options to make things more affordable. I think when we look at affordability to colleges and universities, let's look at their endowments. Do each of these schools really need billions upon billions of dollars of endowment when they could actually lower their operating cost? Because we spend an awful lot of time talking about free tuition, we don't talk about the operating cost. So let's do both. Let's pull down some of these expenses. I think we do need to look at student loans. For instance, the government shouldn't be making money off student loans. Shouldn't be in the business of student loans, period. If you can refi your house and your car, why can't you refi your student loan debt? Why can't we I certainly would be interested in talking about it, making the interest on student loans tax deductible to make it similar. I am going to spend a lot of time on campuses, going to fraternities and sororities, dorms, talking to students. I'm not going to do that cursory drive-by, the obligatory 30-minute, hey, I'm Matt, vote for me. No, I'm going to talk to them, engage them, bring them into the process so I can get their ideas also as I share mine. I'm also going to go into low-income housing projects and knock on every single door, because everyone deserves a vote, but Adam, more importantly, everyone deserves to be heard and respected. We need a champion. For too long, we've had people passively walking by and writing strongly worded letters, expressing their disappointment, and they say it very seriously. We need someone who's actually going to go and engage these folks. I'm a Market Basket Walmart kind of guy. I'm going to create mobile offices through my campaign, but also as congressman that will go and park at Walmart's Market Basket, American Legion, Deerfield Fair, Stratham Fair, so that you and your family, if you have a concern with the federal government, you just walk across the parking lot.
All right. Matt Mayberry, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We appreciate it.